showed up. So, we're all ready to go. Thank you all for being patient. Today is December 9th, and we're here for the Development and Transportation Committee, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. Before we begin, well, I guess, Madam Secretary, you should call roll. And that should be simple and short.
Chairman Sarmiento.
Here. Present.
Committee Member Benavides. Present. Vice Chair Martinez.
Great. So we have a quorum, and the first thing I'd like to start with is any public comments. So we do things kind of informally here. I know at the City Council we have green cards that we have. I think we have the green cards here. Madam Secretary, back here for if anybody wants to fill them up. But if anybody wants to speak, raise your hand. I'll recognize you. But if anybody wants to make any comments here at the front end, let us know, and we can go ahead and do the filling out of the cards afterwards. Anybody wish to speak at this moment? Great. And so when we go to your agenda item, we'll be happy to go ahead and take any public comments there. Seeing none, let's move on to the agenda items. The first one is approval of the minutes, and I'll entertain a motion.
I move.
Second. Unanimous by acclamation. Moving on to the second item, I believe that's yours, Hassan, and I'll go ahead and yield the floor to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a report on the project, proposed project at 3rd and Broadway. As you know, in 2014, the city issued an RFQ with about 6 goals and visions that were identified for the project, and about 5 proposals were presented, and none but one project included a hotel component that at that time became clear was very important to the council members. And then we came to you, and per your direction, we went back and met with every one of the development firms that had submitted a proposal and gave them the opportunity to rethink their proposal and then see if they could do the hotel component, not necessarily on the site, but elsewhere in conjunction with the project in downtown, and allowed them to represent their ideas and revamp their ideas if they would like to, and gave them a deadline. And 4 of the 3, one of them had dropped out and continued to be dropped out. 3 of them proposed pretty much the same proposals that they had proposed before, but Caribou came back and then, as late as that, first gave us a series of concept drawings, and last week, 2 weeks ago, they gave us more developed drawings that, based on the proposal that they have offered, we think Caribou is much more in line with the original goals and the objectives that were outlined in the RFQ. The concept and the design and the components of the proposed project meet the goals of that were outlined. However, there is no information on budgeting, and there's no pro forma added, no financial source has been identified, and no programming of structure. And we have, to be fair, we have never asked for that. So at this point, staff's the evaluation shows that would be the one proposal that meets the most of the proposed visions for the project. However, if the committee would like us to pursue this, we would recommend that you direct us to go ask the developer to then propose detailed pro forma and funding sources and the scheduling of and phasing of the project based on the funding sources for our analysis, and to bring it for your consideration in the future. None of the other proposals meet the criteria that was outlined fully. So.
Thank you for that background. And I know, this whole process of going out to procure for an interested developer for that site, I think predates even many of you who are with the staff now. And so it's been with us for a little while, right, council members? Right. So, we appreciate all the work that all of you have done to get yourself up to speed. I see somebody representing Caribou here. Council member, if you don't mind, if you want to say a few words on behalf of the proposal, or do you let it speak for itself, Mike? What are your thoughts?
No, I'm fine with it. It's pretty much everything that Hassan has stated, and we're looking forward to continuing on to see if we can put something together and get rolling on the project. If you guys
Great. Thanks for being here and thanks for submitting. And I know we had some other interested folks, and I think we circulated twice. To the extent that there's interest and maybe there's interest that may not match exactly what we were trying to look for, that doesn't mean that, we're going to completely disregard anything. But I'm going to go ahead and open it up, and, council member, if you have any comments or questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and staff for the update. As Mayor Pro Tem Sarmiento referenced, this has been some time, number of years that we've been working on this. We have gone out twice. Actually, in fact, I think all four of our EMT members across the table here, this predates each of you. The main thing and interest and that I have, and I think my colleagues in the committee, is that we move forward with something, quality, tangible, and that we're proactive. We've been talking about it for a long time, basically. So to the degree I trust your professional perspective, what you bring from your respective different municipalities, cities that you worked in previously, and just ask that you help us to be able to put something together, a quality project as expeditiously as possible, so that we can move forward. I just came back from the Chapman Economic Forecast Conference, and that there is indication that there is that the economy and construction and such, there is financing, and that there is a direction. It's not necessarily a huge spike, but there is support there, and I just want to make sure that we don't miss out on an opportunity as a city. There is a lot of momentum. I mentioned often, I feel like the wins in our sales as a city, particularly in our downtown, although not exclusively in our downtown, other parts of the city as well. The recommendations, I'm sure, Ghani, that you referenced with regard to the pro forma, the scheduling, financing, I think whenever this is a project that where the city would be a partner because it is property that the city owns, one of the last few parcels that we have to be able, it's a prime parcel. So making sure that we have all of these questions answered, I's dotted, T's crossed, and make sure that we're able to see that it's a viable, strong project, quality design, all of, as we've discussed in the past. That's the best interest, and that's my question interest, that the best interest of the city moving forward. So I just ask you to help us, diligently put that together again as expeditiously as possible. Been talking about this for some time, and so we can go ahead and make some decisions, bring something full council to move forward.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman, and that's where I think we want some guidance from staff, is that my recommendation is similar to the council members, is to go ahead and move it at a committee, because I think we're going to break a record for having an agenda item on committee, and I don't want to be the chairperson of breaking that record. I think we're going on maybe 3 years or maybe 2.5, but again, no fault of your own. It's something that predated your time, and I think to echo what the councilman said, we have complete confidence in your ability to scrutinize anybody that comes before you, which is different than what we had before. I think so now, whoever you work with, whoever becomes the partner in the city on this, we know that the right questions will be asked, the agreements will have the right terms, will have the right conditions, and I'm completely confident in that. So to the extent that you can give us some direction, my suggestion would be similar to Councilman Benavides, is to move it to the council, because we've seen it conceptually, we've seen it already in renderings, but to me, that's not really the linchpin. The threshold for success here is, can it be financed? And I think, can it be financed in a way that the city is going to benefit, and this is going to be moved fairly quickly, because again, we're talking about windows of opportunity that are going to close. And if we don't move on it now, we miss that cycle. And I know we've missed cycles in the past, and it's kind of frustrating, because again, this is one opportunity and asset that we have that's unencumbered. It's exactly where it needs to be. And I think when our city manager came on with the city, I think one of the first things he said is, you know, why would you have a multi-level parking structure in the heart of the downtown where everything is growing and moving? So that was exactly what our sentiments were. So I think all of us want to see something that's interesting, exciting, that's going to continue that momentum that we have there. So any suggestions from both you gentlemen that could help us maybe
Yes,
bring it to
so
the
we
council?
would like you to concur with the staff recommendation, and after we do our due diligence, do the pro forma, ascertain a financing plan and implementation schedule, then I think what you're saying is just bring that to the full council, don't come back to committee.
I think that's exactly what we're saying. And I mean, I know it's difficult to estimate, you know, what that time is, but I would like to not have it indefinite. You know, if for some reason we see that there isn't, let's just, for, you know, playing devil's advocate, if we don't have performance for those numbers and for that ability to prove up the financing, can you come back to us, you know, maybe update us at the council and say, we just haven't had any response? Is maybe that way to do it?
We will have an initial meeting, and then the developer can get a schedule, and then we'll let the council know.
That's what we'll do. We'll get a schedule from the developer, and then as we progress, what we can do, we can send memos to the members of the committee in the meantime, and as the progression goes forward, we'll keep you posted, and if necessary, we'll schedule it back to this committee, but we hope to get there sooner rather than later so that we can take it to council.
Great. Hopefully that works for everybody. And Councilman, are you in agreement? So I guess there's a motion embedded in there somewhere, Madam Secretary, but basically it's just to go ahead and move it out of committee and take it to staff so they can bring it up to the council. Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on to number 3, which is, that's yours, Fred. You're up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember. Starting in 2013, there was a conversation about geophysical survey brought up by Signal Hill Petroleum. What it is that they would like to start an exploratory project in search of potential sources of oil and gas and minerals within certain sections of Orange County. City of Santa Ana happened to be within that route. So they wanted to get a permission to do their discovery and a test. They are telling me, Signal Hills, that they've received all the permits from other cities, and we're the last one that they require to get a permit to get their project going. Key reasons to allow them from our side to move forward with the project and bring it to this subcommittee is that they agreed to the following 3 or 4 principles. One is, the first principle is this discovery would not lead to any type of fracking whatsoever within the city of Santa Ana, which they have affirmed that. Staff would get their full cost recovery of arranging the work that they're doing. They have also agreed to work with us to implement some environmental friendly projects like median conversion along a certain part of the route to drought tolerant type of landscaping. And also they would provide an excessive public outreach along the route because their type of operation can be a little intrusive. And also, most important thing is that because they're inducing vibration into the ground to find the cavities underground, they have agreed to guarantee any type of leak from our underground utilities infrastructure for 1 year, no question asked, within a certain reasonable area. So these are the 4 reasons that what we decided from engineering aspect that, yeah, they're qualified now to bring it to the subcommittee and later on be weighed in by council.
Chairman and Councilman Benavides, I also want you to know, we've been working with this group for probably a year, and we've done a lot of due diligence. One of the referrals was Pat West, the city manager in Long Beach. I personally called him and talked to him. He said didn't have any problems, seemed to be acceptable by the community, good outreach, no issues. They're a similar sized city, they have density, so I just want to let you know, we did do some calls to other city managers and didn't get any negative reports.
Thank you,
So-
Mr. City Manager.
With that being said, Teg would give you a little bit of background, real quick outlook of what takes place as part of this exercise. And they have also provided, Signal Hills also provided some additional information that you have. They're also here represented, and they can answer any questions you have after we're done with the presentation. Teg?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Mr. Vice Chair. I wanted to give you a quick background on the proposed geophysical survey. Within Santa Ana, it's generally the portion of the city within our jurisdictional limits west of the river. The survey itself, the entire survey in its totality, is 35 square miles in West Orange County. That is within Anaheim, Buena Park, Garden Grove, Cypress, a few other cities, and the county of Orange. And as Fred mentioned, they have permits in all of those cities. The purpose of the city would be to provide Signal Hill Petroleum with 3D mapping of the area and potential faults. This is a follow-up to work that was done in 2012 on 2 streets within Anaheim, Garden Grove, Stanton, and Westminster. It was really more of a pilot project done a few years ago. The method that they would use is they would start out with pretty extensive outreach, as we've heard from other cities and from Signal Hill, quite a bit of outreach to the property owners, residents, and tenants. And then after that, actually that outreach goes on during the length of the project. Just prior to the meat of the survey is they install nodes nearby the routes. These nodes are like coffee can size receivers that are placed. There would be about 1,000 of them within the city. They would be placed in parkways and in private property, all permitted and in working with private property owners. So they would place these nodes, and then along those routes that I showed you on the previous slide, these typically I think it's about 4 trucks inch their way along the streets. They stop about every 55 feet and input acoustical energy with the plates, as you can see at the bottom of those trucks. They lower those plates, input acoustical energy, and then that is reflected off the layers, the geological layers, and then picked up by those nodes. So that data is then collected and prepared into a map. The staff, in some of the discussions, staff has identified potential damages that we would consider could happen. Some of the pipes in the city are up to 60 years old, the water, sewer, storm drain pipes, and so we do have some concerns about that. And I know Fred has talked about the guarantees that the Signal Hill would provide. Obviously, there are other utilities in the street, sanitation district, and the gas company would also be a concern, and then potential damage to private property structures. Fred has already talked about this, generally the schedule. The last thing in there is, at least the current schedule is, Signal Hill Petroleum would like to start the vibration portion of that work in May of 2016. And Fred talked about this part. We would come back to council with a recommendation to prepare an agreement, or to execute an agreement with Signal Hill identifying all these conditions. And that's the end of the presentation. We're here to answer questions, and Signal Hill is here as well.
Great. And I'll extend the same courtesy as I did to the previous agenda item. If there's somebody here from Signal Hill who would like to address the committee and the staff, please feel free.
May I stand here?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. I'd like to just do a quick introduction. My name's Deborah Russell, and I'm the project manager, excuse me, for the geophysical survey. I'm here with Dr. Mitch Barklage. He's our chief geophysicist for the project, and Stephanie Gillette, who is on my team for project management and community outreach. I'd like to thank the staff that we've been working with for so long, and they do a really great job of scrutinizing everybody that gets this far. So they've done an excellent job. Thank you for the time that you have spent working with us and the presentation. I have just a little bit of a couple explanations on the project. So the survey, what it does, it's really a research study, and we're mapping the Earth's geology underneath Orange County. We're creating a 3D map very similar to an ultrasound of a baby, and it's exciting to be able to see what these maps look like once they're finished. And it does not necessarily, it does not map oil or minerals. What it maps is geology, and as the acoustic sound waves are going through the ground, and they might bounce off clay or rock differently, or something else, all of that gets recorded by these units right here, these nodes, and it's downloaded into a supercomputer, processed, and then analyzed by our geophysicists and a big group of team to really create an amazing map of what's underneath our surface. And these nodes are very important because they're, this is what we're really getting our permit for. In Long Beach and Signal Hill, when we did the survey, it was a few years long, we actually were given a parade permit, and it was because our trucks are kind of along down the street. And these are put in public right-of-ways, and they're buried into softscape, and so the public or community really doesn't see them until we put them in and take them out and change their battery. But these are in public right-of-ways, and as Mr. Higgins said, where there isn't a public right-of-way, we'll work with private landowners. We also do extensive research, outreach, and we'll work with school districts and schools along the routes, and we bring the students out, and our geologists will come out and talk with them. We do mailers, and we print them in different languages, and myself, Stephanie, Mitch, and probably about 45 other people on our team actually walk down the streets with the trucks doing extensive outreach, as Mr. Higgins said, during the duration of the project too. There's also extensive pre-planning that happens before our trucks ever work on the streets. Our goals are very aligned, that we do not want to hurt infrastructure as much as you do not want your infrastructure damaged as well. Because if we did something, we are responsible for it, and we will pay for that, and we will fix it according to whatever standard that is for your city and for your community. So we don't want anything to happen as much as you do. So we do pre-planning with our scientists to make sure that we understand all of your utilities, where they are, what type they are. We'll even plan points where we won't even survey, even if they might be on this map after we still meet with your public works team and anybody else that knows the streets really well, and say, yeah, we don't want to be there either. So a lot of pre-planning happens. Vibration levels are set way ahead of time and very carefully to make sure that we're not causing damage to infrastructure, but also, just as important, to nearby structures, buildings, homes. We live near airports and hospitals and power plants and china shops and glass shops and windows. We drive every single street before we even put a truck on a street, and we'll go and talk to the property owners prior to our trucks being there, saying, this is what we have, what are your sensitive areas, what can we learn about you, and what do you need to know about us to make sure everything is good before we drive down your street. We meet with homeowners, and we talk to them extensively about the project. We want as many people as we can to know about us, who we are, what we're doing, so that way there's no surprises. And we found in our extensive surveys that we've done all over, that the more people know about us, the more curious they are. They're happy to be out there when the trucks are on the street. They go by and they say, great, thanks, that was pretty interesting. I've never seen that before. And we move on. We're proud of how we run our operations, and so we're happy to meet with and do whatever it is that cities need us to do we'll do everything that we can to make sure that we do it right the first time, and that we do what we say that what we're gonna do, and that, we don't cause any issues, one, for your community, but two, for all of you as well, and the hard work that you put into, learning about what we do. So, to end, I'd like to say that this is just a mapping project. It is not drilling wells. If we ever came back to your city, that's a whole nother process that would probably last many, many years and may or may not get done at the end of the day. But we will never know that unless we map the Earth's geology, see what's there, and then start that conversation after that. Lastly, I'd like to add that we have committed to donating the shallow information, because we're looking very deep into the ground. We're not looking at anything shallow or underneath buildings or homes or any of that. And so we're looking deep, and we process only the deep data. But we've worked in the past closely with Caltech, and we continue to do that through Dr. Bartledge's team. But we'll share information with them, and they're using our information to study ground motion, and they're actually, changing models and looking at that and evaluating and doing amazing things with the science that we're providing them for free. The other thing that we've done is shared some of our information with the Water Replenishment District, and they're using this information for things that are very exciting to them. And in Orange County, we've met with the Orange County Water District and have committed to donating data from our last survey as well as this survey for free, and processing it for them, or assisting in getting it processed, because that's really, there's this expense, but then the processing and understanding the data to apply it to their specific needs. We'll be doing that as well. And it's a great science project, and that's what it is right now at this point. We're excited about it, and we're happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Can you stand by if you have any
Absolutely
questions?
can.
Please feel free to have a seat, and if anybody from staff or the committee has a question for you, we'd love for you to join us and answer any of that. It's a great science project, and my 13-year-old is about to do his science project for school, so not a bad idea, right? So it's a good guy to talk to. I think he'd get a pretty good grade for something like this. But I'll go ahead and open it up, and Councilmember, if you have any questions or comments, I know I do have some questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions I do have for staff initially. It sounds like you've done, like staff has been fairly thorough in some of the questions and studying this, city manager contacting the city manager in Long Beach. Whenever you're talking about, or you mentioned, oil, petroleum, drilling, one of the more controversial questions, issues, fracking, and so all of those things will very likely be questions in the mind of the public, definitely of the council. That's part of what we wanted to be able to address. I did have an opportunity to speak with representatives of Signal Hill Petroleum earlier today, because I know this is, again, anticipating questions, issues that the community might have, questions that I have as well. This is all new. Want to make sure to that we address any adverse effects, and all at this point, as I understand, and was confirmed by staff and by the speaker just now. This has nothing to do yet with anything related to drilling or to oil. It's all from a seismic mapping. That's what I understand, both from the presentation, from what staff has presented. I am glad, though, that there are always going to be some type of potential, or either small effects, even with traffic, slowing of traffic, time of staff as well. But I'm glad that you have included in what's being recommended by staff is full cost recovery on staff time. And I'm glad that there is also, because again, there are some effects to us, whether it be our staff or time, impacts out there in the community, traffic and such, that there's some type of net benefit that we can also point to. The converting of the median, something that is a real need in our community. So it's something that we can also point to our residents. Yes, we are spending the time as again, our staff, and there are some effects, but there will be also a benefit from a tangible standpoint. As you know, there's a very much an intentional commitment on the part of council to have open dialogue with the community. The more communication, we can never have too much communication, so the fact that extensive outreach to the public is a part of what's being required and what's being presented here is also helpful and gives me some peace of mind as a councilman. A couple of questions that I do have with regard to the agreement. There's reference potentially, if we move forward, that we would provide permanent, there would be some type of agreement. What would that agreement consist of? Is it primarily the indemnification and also confirmation that any type of potential damage would be addressed and covered by the organization, by the company? What would the agreement consist of?
That is correct. Basically, we have 4 or 5 items that we mentioned. There would be a exclusive and comprehensive public relation, protection of underground utilities, guaranteed for 1 year, no question asked, those needs to be addressed. And also, we would put in their commitment that at this point where they are this is not intended to lead into fracking. Because I remember their last subcommittee that brought that up and says, you know, it's a no-go if has anything to do with the fracking. So those are the main principles we will put in on the agreement.
When it comes to the Orange County Sanitation District, no, we have sewer lines under our streets, the Orange County Water District. There's also reference of gas company. Are they involved in also, do they have to go through the process of permitting and all, as well, or is it exclusively with the city, and what type of communication do we have with the Sand District?
Would you like to address that?
And the
Yes.
Water District?
Thank you. In a letter that I've sent to all the cities to update where we are, we reach out to all the agencies that we can that might be affected in this, so they can be a part of this survey as well. And we've reached out to Colonial Mutual Water District, East Side Water Company, Golden State Water, Orange County Water District, Southside Water Company, Midway Sanitary District, Orange County Sanitation District, the gas company, Southern California Gas and Southern California Edison. And we've done that over the past years, and one, to get them aware of our project, but two, we worked with the gas company and they gave us, information on where they said they didn't want, us to have our trucks over. And they don't have any authority to permit us, but we absolutely want to bring them in as, I don't want to call them partners, but people very aware of our project. And so we vetted through our project through all of them because, again, we don't want issues just as much as they do.
Thank you, that's helpful. And I just would ask that our staff confirm with each of those agencies, just that they are full aware, if they have any questions or anything of that sort. Would hate to allow permitting on our end and then it become an issue with some of these organizations that are partners of ours. That the data, I imagine that any type of, and we go through a process of assessing and analyzing our asphalt conditions, a number of different things that we do to be able to just better understand and know the conditions of our own infrastructure. Imagine being able to have some of this data would be beneficial to the organizations or agencies such as the Orange County Sanitation District, Orange County Water District. So to a degree that information can be made available to them as well, it benefits our community and the region as a whole. So I would definitely encourage that and see that as a net benefit as well. So that addresses my questions.
Great. Thank you. And yeah, no, I appreciate you coming before us and giving us some background. As a former member of the Water District, I'm sure that they'll appreciate any data and research that you recover and see what the overdraft is doing to the aquifer. So that I know is heavy on all our minds just because of these 4 years of drought. So I know they'll appreciate that. As the council member mentioned, I will as well. For full disclosure, I did have a conversation with somebody on behalf of Signal Hill, and so thank you for that. And we didn't go into much detail, but I know I've been a little busy, so this is helpful to get the background from you. And I'm confident that whatever conversations were had with staff, I'm sure were thorough. So I know that what we're being asked of tonight is just to simply go ahead and defer and send this to staff so they can go ahead and work on an agreement. The only things I would mention is that on the outreach end of it, it is a tricky thing for us. We're still trying to figure out how effectively to outreach. We're a very hard to reach community because we have a diverse population that are many non-English speakers. So what I would recommend, just looking at the quadrant that you're going to be addressing in the city, there's many Vietnamese speakers and many Spanish speakers as well. So to the extent you can have your firm and your communication partners work on having a multilingual discussion and outreach to them, I think that'll be helpful. The other issue is on the nexus of the impacts. So we know that there'll be impacts, and believe me, sometimes you try to prepare for everything that you think may happen, and sure enough, something that nobody thought of happened. So
Correct.
to the extent that we want to be reasonable in recovery of any impacts that we have, please understand that. We do have our infrastructure is much older than most cities, that you're going to be dealing with, but we certainly appreciate you being responsible for everything that you do here. The other thing that was mentioned is obviously I wanted to make sure and again reiterate that the scope of this consent would be limited to the survey, and in the event that resources are found, that's a whole other conversation. And so we're fine with that. I think I'm fine with that, although it's a slippery slope, so we just don't want there to be some inference made that, well, you allowed to survey, that means that everybody's great with the following steps, and that's a much more difficult conversation, as well. But I think given what we're allowing to have happen, I have confidence in staff that they'll make sure that the agreement is fair, and the agreement is one that we can all do. My only question is since you have agreements with the other cities already, has any of the survey began in those areas, or are you waiting to have all the cities before you begin?
Question. So the survey portion where the trucks are driving down the streets, that cannot happen until all the cities are permitted and the nodes are in place, and that's the science of the project. Is a vibration could be happening in a different part of the project, but the nodes in Santa Ana are listening to those vibrations. These nodes actually caught the Japan earthquake in Long Beach. They can hear it, they're very sensitive. Excuse me. And so the way the science works is they have to be in place before the survey can start. So the fact that all the other cities are there and we're ready to go, we really need Santa Ana to be a part of this to be able to move forward. Also, the survey is approximately 4 months long in total, and Santa Ana only has 11 days of that project, and so it's a very short portion of the project. And as far as outreach, we'll be having Spanish speakers as well as Vietnamese speakers on our team, and the community that's along the truck routes, they're really I use the word touched, but 3 times we'll be getting with them on the project. And the first is a mailing of a brochure, which I know staff has, but I'd be happy to send that again. The second is, we'll put street delineators along the truck routes reminding a few days ahead. And then the third is we all walk the streets and we're personally talking with team members that speak language and standing there with community members that want to come out, and we'll reach every business, every homeowner and business owner along the truck routes as well, and then anything afterwards that's required to make sure that they're satisfied with what we did.
Thank you for that. I'm not sure whose ward this is, but I think it might be Councilman Reyna's, right? So we'll make sure we let him know, because I'm sure they'll probably call him up as well, and they can maybe get a number to your contact folks over there as well. And thank you for that visual as well. I didn't realize how sensitive that was, but when you said it's the size of a coffee container, you guys ever seen that movie, The Bucket List?
Yes.
So when I saw that, I thought, man, that's the one that went on top of the mountain, and I think Jack Nicholson was his remains were buried there. So in any event, I know that's the first thing I thought of. Pretty bizarre, but anyways, So I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to have the agreement with staff so they can bring up to the city council for its approval.
I'll move it.
Second, unanimous by acclamation. I think that takes care of our agenda items. Thank you very much for those comments and that background. Any comments from staff? Seeing none, it looks like we're gonna get out of here early, just because I think we're 2/3 of a committee, right? The other third probably would've kept us here for a little longer because it's the holidays,
Maybe.
but it was our Christmas gift, so. Committee member comments.
Just want to thank staff for all of their hard work all year, and just with that, Merry Christmas. Enjoy some time with family.
Ditto, and I'll go ahead and adjourn on that vein. So thank you all very much.